When Rise of the Infidels was released in 2007, a lot of fans assumed Stormtroopers of Death had reunited one last time for a farewell album. After all, it had new artwork, a new title, and it arrived 8 years after Bigger Than the Devil. But was this really the final S.O.D album, or was it something else entirely? The truth is much more complicated. Behind this release was a band that had already fallen apart, friendships that had turned to bitter feuds, and years of resentment over money, songwriting credit, and personal betrayals. Today we're looking at what the Rise of Infidels really is, why Billy Milano's relationship with Scott Ian and Charlie Benante completely collapsed, what Billy Milano is doing today, what Dan Lilker has been up to, and why this release truly marked the end of one of crossover thrash's most influential bands.
You're dead! Wait!
Let's clear up the biggest misconception right away. Rise of the Infidels is not a traditional S.O.D album. The band didn't get back together to write a fresh collection of songs. There wasn't a lengthy writing process or months spent in the studio creating the record. Instead, this release was simple to serve as the definitive ending of the band. Think of it as a farewell package rather than a brand new album. By 2007, Stormtroopers of Death were effectively finished. The chemistry that had fueled both Speak English or Die and Bigger Than the Devil had disappeared, and there was little desire among the members to continue. Billy Milano later explained that the goal was simple: give the fans one last release and officially close the book on S.O.D. Another major reason for the album was to clear out the band's archives. Instead of brand new material, the release combined a handful of leftover studio recordings with a full live performance from the band's 1999 tour. The studio portion featured just 4 tracks. 2 were originally unreleased originals: Stand Up and Fight and Java Amigo.
Out the light, suffer and groan. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. I need a cup of Joe to move a little quicker, man. You move way too slow.
The other 2 were hardcore punk covers: Agnostic Fronts, United and Strong, and Negative Approaches, Ready to Fight. The rest of the release consisted of 20 live tracks recorded at Seattle's Phoenix Club during the 1999 tour. So despite carrying the appearance of a new album, Rise of the Infidels is really a collection of unreleased material and live recordings packaged together as the final goodbye. It also accomplished another important goal. For years, fans kept wondering if the S.O.D would reunite again. This release was intended to end those rumors permanently. Billy Milano made it clear around the time of release that this was supposed to be the absolute last chapter in the band's history. No more reunion speculation. It was just one final release to put the project to rest.
I need a cup of Joe to move a little quicker, man. You move way too slow.
Of course, one of the biggest reasons there wasn't a real S.O.D album was the deteriorating relationship between Billy Milano and Anthrax members Scott Ian and Charlie Benante. What started as creative agreements eventually became one of crossover thrash's longest-running feuds. One issue centered around the band's legacy. Scott Ian has often been credited as the driving force behind the S.O.D concept and the creation of Sergeant D. Billy Milano strongly disagreed with that version of history. Over the years, Milano claimed he was responsible for pushing the Stormtroopers of Death name, shaping much of the band's lyrical identity, and even encouraging Ian to develop some of the music that became iconic parts of Speak English or Die. As a result, Milano publicly accused Ian of rewriting the band's history. Then there was the issue of money. Milano has repeatedly alleged that he was denied royalties over the years, particularly involving overseas licensing agreements. According to Milano, he wasn't receiving everything he believed he was owed and eventually pursued legal action over those disputes. Whether fans agree with those claims or not, it's clear that financial disagreements became another major source of resentment. Touring also became a breaking point. Coming from the New York hardcore scene, Milano has always embraced a very DIY mentality. He later criticized what he viewed as rockstar behavior from Ian and Benante. One story he has repeated involves the Anthrax members leaving him and Dan Lilker behind at a hotel while they departed on Anthrax business connected to Slipknot. Milano also criticized Scott Ian for allegedly refusing to sign autographs for fans waiting outside in freezing weather. Those incidents only deepened the divide. Finally, Milano made some extremely controversial accusations regarding Charlie Benante's songwriting, even claiming that the famous riff to Anthrax's Indians resembled the theme from 1960 television show F Troop. Whether fans accept those claims or dismiss them, they demonstrate just how personal this feud had become. By the time Bigger Than the Devil cycle ended in 1999, the relationships had deteriorated beyond repair. That's why Rise of the Infidels wasn't the beginning of another chapter, it was the final page. The divide has remained ever since. In recent years, Scott Ian and Dan Lilker have performed S.O.D songs under the name Stormtroopers of Death, using guest vocalists such as Hatebreed's Jamie Josta rather than reuniting with Billy Milano. That move made it abundantly clear a full S.O.D reunion was never going to happen. Billy Milano has never been the type to quietly disappear. While he remains absent from any official S.O.D reunion, he continues making music on his own terms. One of the biggest current projects is United Forces, a band dedicated to performing classic S.O.D material live. Instead of trying to recreate the original lineup, Milano assembled musicians who share his passion for crossover thrash and continues bringing those songs to club audiences. He also kept Method of Destruction, better known as M.O.D, alive. Although he hinted at retirement several years ago, he revived the project and has continued writing new material. Longtime guitarist Louis Civitek has even returned for select performances, giving longtime fans another reason to check out the band. Away from touring, Milano has built a life in Austin, Texas, where he's lived for roughly 2 decades. He remains deeply connected to the local music scene, frequently giving interviews, interacting with fans, and running his music independently without relying on traditional music industry. Love him or hate him, Billy Milano has always done things his own way. His outspoken personality hasn't changed, and he's still one of heavy music's most unapologetically candid figures. Dan Lilker has arguably experienced one of the most surprising career moments in recent years. After 4 decades away from Anthrax, he temporarily returned to the band when longtime bassist Frank Bello stepped away for several international dates for personal reasons. Lilker, who co-founded Anthrax alongside Scott Ian and played on Fistful of Metal, suddenly found himself back on stage with the band after 40 years. His sense of humor was on full display when he joked that Anthrax had told him back in 1984 to stick around because they might need him in 40 years. The reunion took him across major festivals in South America before continuing to high-profile U.S. events, introducing a whole new generation of fans to the bassist who helped launch Anthrax in the first place. Outside of Anthrax, Lilker remains incredibly active. Although he stepped away from relentless full-time touring after ending Brutal Truth, he continues recording and performing with projects including Venomous Concept, Exit 13, and Overlord Exterminator. He also makes regular guest appearances with other bands. One memorable example saw him joining Shadows Fall on stage to perform the Nuclear Assault classic Critical Mass. When he's not touring, Lilker lives a relatively quiet life in Rochester, New York, staying connected to the underground metal community through studio work, local performances, and various collaborations. He's become something of an elder statesman within thrash, grindcore, and extreme metal, a musician whose influence continues to be felt decades after helping shape those genres. So while Rise of the Infidels may not be the studio comeback some fans hope for, it serves as an important purpose. It gave fans one final collection of S.O.D material, closed the vaults, and officially ended one of crossover thrash's most influential bands. Sometimes the final chapter isn't a triumphant reunion, sometimes it's simply about saying goodbye. Next time, we shift our focus back to Anthrax as we dive into 2003's Worship Music, an album that marked a major turning point for the band, showed they still had plenty left in the tank after years of lineup changes and uncertainty. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know your thoughts on Rise of the Infidels in the comment below. Check out the Anthrax playlist. It should be on your screen right now and has the complete story of Anthrax. I still have a few more videos to be done, and I'll probably be finished by the end of the month. And thanks for watching. See you in the next one.